Killing was so intense it seems impossible that a field mouse could survive in front of us. Yet Jerry would be there when it stopped, waiting in his rat hole behind the next row of hedges. And then, we couldn't see anyone behind the hedgerow, but we were getting some small arms fire as we crossed on an open field. A couple of hedgerows back, we passed what had been left for us as a warning of the enemy's capabilities. A field strewn with charred German tanks and the bodies of the men we'd been riding with only a few days before. Body left hanging half out of the tanks, body left to stink and bloat, flesh burned, necked and blacked, a cogent reminder of what the enemy might have in store for us. This is the field he's talking about. In your father's memoir. Yes. So, they've liberated Say, then they're moving on. After a rest, we were ordered up off our dead asses and on the road again. Their advance this time led into farmland where the fields were separated by hedgerows. Through generation after generation, the farms were divided. The heirs separated their small farm with tall hedges. While not entirely true, the point is that it was a good way to keep the cattle in the field without having to put barbed wire or anything else, in between. And so it's a good way to make the boundary of your field very clear.
Yes.
Light artillery provided cover for us whenever we advanced through the hedges. After a barrage laid down just in front of us lifted, we moved up. That process was repeated again and again. The shelling was so intense it seems impossible that a field mouse could survive in front of us. Yet Jerry would be there when it stopped, waiting in his rat hole behind the next row of hedges. So this is very consistent with the landscape we are here. And then We couldn't see anyone behind the hedgerow, but we were getting some small arms fire as we crossed on an open field. A couple of hedgerows back, we passed what had been left for us as a warning of the enemy's capabilities. A field strewn with charred Sherman tanks and the bodies of the men we'd been riding with only a few days before. Body left hanging half out of the tanks, body left to stink and bloat, flesh burned, necked and blacked, a cogent reminder of what the enemy might have in store for us. And this is the field he's talking about.
Wow.
The tanks were along this hedgerow, the four of them looking in that direction, and they were just following each other. So the platoon crossed the Ur River, which is a small river south of Uru, at a ford in a farm. So the fifth tank of the platoon was stuck because of the mud. So only four tanks took part into the attack, and this is General McBride, the commanding officer of the division, himself who ordered that attack. The 4 tanks advanced without any infantry cover, so they were coverless basically. So you see the entrance on the other side of the field. This is where they were coming from, and they were going in our direction, all queuing up. Approximately halfway into the field, the edge was smaller, like our size, which means that the turret of the tank would be visible from anyone standing there in Argentan. And this is where a German anti-tank gun spotted them. And he used the white stars on the side of the tanks because they were, I'm looking for more word, but they were just, plain white, no camouflage here. So they used that as a target. He knocked out the first tank, then the fourth tank, which means that the second and third tank was stuck in between, and then they were also destroyed. All that in a matter of minutes. McBride witnessed that. He ordered Captain Stover, the captain of the company, B Company 702 Tank Battalion, to commit another platoon. Captain Stover refuses. So he asked, so you're refusing a direct order, so court martial after that, he was found not guilty because he was basically saving some lives and vehicles.
You said McBride witnessed it?
Yeah, he was there. He ordered personally the attack.
He was here?
He was in the farm over there witnessing the attack firsthand.
Wow.
And the point is that we have pictures of those tanks taken by French civilian after the liberation.
You sent me one picture. I do have a picture.
There we go. So this is one of the tank. So you can see the hole. So this is the field, and the house here is that one over there. You can see the field, the roof. Is right there. So they were destroyed over there. And the 4 of them were destroyed in line. This is another one, so taken from that direction, the picture. And you can see the hedge way smaller than nowadays. Another one, again destroyed in the same field. So this picture would have been taken, like this. It would have stained, in between the hedge and the tank, because it was looking in that direction, going that way. The objective was that crossroad, and then to move on to cross the Blacktop Road, the east-west highway, and then go on with the attack.
So this is the east-west highway.
Not
that intersection.
Here, where the car is driving. Well, we're going to get there by foot, just to show you. The point is, the weather is not with us today because it's pretty blurry when it comes to understanding the. But just from there, you can see the difference between here, hedgerow country, and there you can see the open fields. Not that much cover, and that was something very difficult for the U.S. soldiers. And there is the account of Colonel McBride, not McBride, McHugh, who was the commanding officer of the 318th, and he said that the soldiers on the first day of the assault, I think he was mentioning soldiers from 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, they were so scared of crossing that highway that he had personally cornered to cross it, show them the way,
Right.
and kick them in the ass, and get them off the ditch, and move on with the attack. Because
These tanks, that's the 19th of August?
August 18th, the first
18th.
day, which again, this is consistent with your father's timeline. He liberated Say, then he was over there, he saw the burning tanks, and he went on with the attack in that direction.
And the 18th is a Friday.
20th is the Sunday,
Sunday,
so
right.
yes, 18th is a Friday, and Saturday would be August 8th, 19th. And we just go there, you can see the difference in terms of landscape. It's quite striking. When we saw the long-flanked muzzle of a German tank push through the hedge and head straight for a position behind that small ridge. But this is there, or the other side. We can go around, maybe the other side, if you want to. But it's definitely somewhere, here. And you can understand why, because it's just open fields all around.
Yeah.
Here you can see Argentan with the big steeple right in the middle. And here we have a better view of the hills overlooking where all the Germans were.
Right.
So over there, the edge of the forest, and over there as well. And they would open fire with everything they have on American troops
Yes.
who would have been pinned down here already. And when you read all the accounts from different soldiers, they all tell the same story about the 19th of August attack. I have them there.
So Tristan, he describes being in a potato field,
Yeah.
which would have been here, somewhere around
Here
here.
or on the other side.
But he also describes the blocage on the far side that the Germans were behind
I think that would be probably the forest,
the forest.
from my
Okay.
perspective.
Yeah. He said they were moving the mortars back and forth so that they couldn't be shot, and located.
Yeah.
And
I'm reading, we push through a plowed field when the Jerry's upon us fires on us with small arms. First Lieutenant James Singleton was out in front yelling at us not to hit the dirt. If we were caught in an open field, Jerry could bring up his mortars and in little time he'd have pinned down. We advanced steadily across the field, returning fire for fire with the lieutenant shouting, "Stay on your feet till you get to the next hedgerow." But as the supporting fire around me began disappearing much too quickly, I began to worry about our situation. It occurred to me that if I kept moving and the others kept hitting the dirt, there soon wouldn't be many of us left when we got to the next hedgerow. Generally speaking, I never laid claim to being the hero type. In fact, I staked my claim to being a confirmed coward. And the sensible thing it seemed for me to do now was to take cover. I dug in with my best tool I had, my fingernails, and waited. I lay there on the ground for what seems like hours, with only little mounds of dirt shielding me from fire. So you can understand what he's referring to. You have hedgerow, but with a huge open field in between. It didn't take the enemy long to get their mortars in place and started screaming minis plugging in all around us. I stuck my head up once to fire at that position. It looked as though they were holding their mortars around in little wooden wagons. First they threw in a couple of rounds, then moved the wagon so that nobody could get a bed on it. Wasn't this being a trifle overly cautious? As things stood, even without the mortar fire, they probably could have kept us pinned down for the duration. A shell hit a couple of furrows in front of me, and the concussion lifted me up in the air like a rag doll. I lay there, stunned, struggling to recover my senses. After a few seconds, I realized I had better start checking for damages. The back of my right hand felt as though someone had stuck a lit cigarette to it. There were two small holes in my glove. There were no bleeding that I could see. Even when I removed the glove, there was very little blood. I checked for the missing parts. There was nothing missing. But I was definitely experiencing mixed emotions as I dramatically reached for my first aid kit, which I kept on my right hip. It was a little awkward getting to, but I struggled bravely. Finally getting the pouch open with my teeth, I managed to get the sulfur drugs and the bandage in a precise, neat bandage on my right hand. I was feeling rather proud of my accomplishment until I started to recall my situation. Then I began once again to suffer considerable apprehension. I was in pretty good shape right now, I thought. But what if those goddamn mortars did a better job on me the next time? I had to find a way out, and damn quick. I started perspiring. The sweat was running in my eyes. My head was soaked. I took off my steel helmet to wipe my bow. Then I saw what might have worked on me like a double dose of castor oil. There was a jagged hole in my helmet, big enough to stick the three fingers through. The infantryman's basic manual never explained to you how to make decisions. A little autonomy might have helped about now. The decision I made wasn't really that difficult though, especially after I'd received a little help from someone else. As I was laying there thinking about the mess I'd gotten into, I felt something or someone tapping the sole of my shoes. In my mind's eye, I saw the grey uniform of a crowd standing above me, checking my reflexes at bayonet point. Perhaps if I don't have any, he'll just go on about his business, checking out the rest of the buddies around here. I play possum and hold my breath for a while. That better than giving him the opportunity of stopping my breathing entirely. The tapping continued, but now it was accompanied by a whisper. Hell, this is just another trick of the enemies to get me to stop breathing. But the persistence of the tapping and the pathos in the voice finally forced me to make a move. I turned and looked into a face covered with a muddy, blood-soaked bandage. One more purple hat candidate who would like to know how to get out of here. He said he couldn't see too well to make it on his own. Perhaps we might have a chance to make it together. He grabbed me by the ankle and we began crawling toward the rear. We hadn't got far when we ran into a non-com who told us that we were headed in the wrong direction. We could never get out of the way we were going. The sergeant had been wounded too and had tried. He decided the situation was hopeless, that we were surrounded. There was no way out. Our spirits headed for a new low when we heard the sound of tanks approaching from our rear. We'd be in that direction. Were we finally getting help? Were our reinforcements coming? Those encouraging thoughts lasted for about 15 seconds. We were looking in the general direction of the sound of the engine when we saw the long-flanked muzzle of a German tank push through the hedge and head straight for a position. The size of this vehicle alone was enough to scare the hell out of you. If we didn't do something real soon, with that thing bearing down on us like it was, perhaps we'd better start making a few preparations for getting through that big hedgerow in the sky. We fired at the hatches, forcing the drivers to close them. It limited their visibility considerably, but only delayed the inevitable. Our position seemed untenable. Then before we knew what was happening, it all came to an end. All the shooting stopped when one of our men, a few yards in front of us, stood up with his hand over his head and in a high-pitched voice shouted to the Jerry's, comrade. In less than 2 minutes, everything was changed. It was easy for the rest of us to throw the towel in after that. Later, we asked him why he surrendered. He said that with the 88 pointing in his face, he saw no further reason for arguing. I guess we couldn't argue with much either. Hände hoch, a somewhat excited greeting tersely interslated with other unintelligible phrases in German constituted our reception. It wasn't too difficult to comprehend what they meant. In broken English, a German officer frantically ordered us to get into a large shell hole where we might have a chance to survive our own incoming heavy artillery. In a few seconds, the whoosh whoosh sounds of Allied 155 shells lent considerable authority to the Germans' order. Bonjour. So
the German tanks were behind them?
So the German tanks basically launched a counterattack from that direction, and they went around them. They outflanked them, and then they came from the rear.
Yeah,
so you have to imagine the whole company, for some unknown reason, maybe lack of command, lack of
Communication.
seasoned NCOs, everyone was hitting the dirt, and they did not move for hours. And all of the accounts we have is consistent with that. PFC Anthony Kulaga, he was with the L company. He said, my company was attacking a hill, these hills. All around us, men were being killed. The acting platoon leader, since he could not get any support from the tanks or the TD, decided to surrender. We were taken back into the enemy's line, and we were searched, and where the Germans took our names, rank, and serial numbers. Helmut Wildermann, in the affidavit, swore. So I, the undersigned, stated that on the morning of the 20th of August, mistake, definitely 90th.
Yep.
L Company 318th Infantry jumped off the attack of Argentan from the little town of Bordeaux, where we just came from. The company had crossed the stream the day before, and the company was deployed along the main east-west road. The artillery concentration lasted from 4 to 6 p.m., at which time the Company L moved out across country and over an open field in a northerly direction. So the north is in that direction, and this is all open field. In the cornfield, 3 platoons of L Company were pinned down by a German flak gun in a house. I was in the 3rd platoon of Company L, that would be your Fadder's platoon. We lay in the cornfield from approximately 7 till 1500, 700 till 1500 that day. At that time, German tanks came down the road from the town of Argentan and cut us from the rear of the cornfield. At that time, we were all captured by the German, who led us around the rear of the house and placed us in a stone quarry. There were 84 of us, and we were held in this quarry for about 1 hour.
So they were surrounded by Germans. Initially, the Germans were in front of them, it sounds like.
The Germans were over there, on the hill. You can see all this forest in the hill. They were there. And at some point, when they realized that the U.S. forces coming from that direction over there were stuck, were pinned down, they decided to launch a counterattack and to outflank them, along this lane, along the other lane, on the other side of the field. And then, well, they were surrounded.
Yeah.
This is when they all surrender. The technical surgeon Logan, another NCO with L Company, he remembered that we were attacking at Argentan, 19th of August 1944. The platoon I was leading continually kept moving ahead, but the outfits at the right and left fell behind, including the tank destroyers. Soon the enemy brought up tanks, additional mortars, machine gun. In fact, they brought everything against my platoon, which was now alone in the field. We fought them off for 3 hours, but many of my men were being killed and were receiving no support. We surrendered. We were taken near the ground position, being placed almost under them, so that our planes, seeing us, would not bomb their guns. 3 hours later, we were moving to a forest where was from the mountains. So it's all very consistent when you see all this. It's always the same story. We're advancing, being pinned down, open field. The Germans counterattacked, surrounded us, and then we surrendered.
Right. Yes.
And so here's the map I sent you based on a 1947 picture. So Bordeaux. So we are here. Right now we are approximately here. Okay. So the general area where the soldiers were pinned down and captured would be, right there. And the German, they launched counterattack from Hill 172, which is right over there. And so we're quite there, obviously.
Right.
See? Well, I have to lock that up. Yeah, here we go. So we're looking at that. So this road is the road just behind us, and we're looking at this area where they were captured.
Where's the hill on here?
We're going to get there.
This is the hill.
This is just a crossroad actually.
Yeah.
But this is from where the German launched their counterattacks and surrounded the.
Well, what was their objective? Which hill was their objective again?
It was the one here with the radio tower that you can barely see here. You see the main hill over there. This is the objective. So they were moving really from that direction, this way. But also, I think your father's battalion objective was to seize, to seize Cran first, and then turn
Toward
westwards, and
Argentan.
then take those hills, and then they would take Argentan, but not Argentan directly, frontally.
Yeah, it was like surrounded Argentan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. But this was their immediate objective, I guess. This hill or
This is the
Cran.
objective. This is the divisional objective, because they thought that once you hold those hills, you can take the city, and you have a pretty decent view on the city. You can see the big church steeple over there. This is the center of Argentan.
Wow.
So yeah, this is, I'm afraid, the closer we can get as to where your father was captured. But maybe you can take a walk if you want. You know, along here, maybe there's a small lane so that we can, you know, cross the field and get in the middle if you want. It's up to you. You let me know.
Yeah, maybe that might be.
With that thing bearing down on us like it was, perhaps we'd better start making a few preparations for getting through that big hedgerow in the sky. Then before we knew what was happening, it all came to an end. All the shooting stopped when one of our men, a few yards in front of us, stood up with his hand over his head and in a high-pitched voice shouted to the Jerry's, "Comrade, comrade." In less than 2 minutes, everything was changed. It was easy for the rest of us to throw the towel in after that. Later, we asked him why he surrendered. He said that with the 88 pointing in his face, he saw no further reason for arguing. I guess we couldn't argue with much either. Hände hoch, a somewhat excited greeting tersely interslated with other unintelligible phrases in German constituted our reception. It wasn't too difficult to comprehend what they meant. In broken English, a German officer frantically ordered us to get into a large shell hole where we might have a chance to survive our own incoming heavy artillery. Troops in Normandy in memory of the soldiers of the 80th US Infantry Division who gave their lives for the liberation of Argentan. Then you have the listing of every soldier's NCO and officer who were either killed in action or died of their wounds. Or
Walter Brush, my father wrote about it.
yes, Brush. Brush was with our
POW.
company, exactly.
He was a POW and the wall collapsed and killed him.
I could find you the name of all
There was one more.
the L Company soldiers.
Roy Hillman, maybe? Yeah, Roy Hillman. He's the other
Yes,
one.
Hillman. Exactly.
Right here. He's the other guy that was killed when the wall collapsed. He was a POW, killed by friendly fire. So we're standing at Mont Amel. This is where the Polish troops were, Hill 262, really surrounded by Germans. In the far, far distance, those hills over there is Argentan. And then the 90th Division was really advancing towards Chambois. But Dad was a prisoner of war. He was coming from Argentan through some circuitous route up in this direction towards Chambois, which I believe is straight ahead as well. But probably the small village out there is Chambois. And he was a POW, as I said, moving toward the Dive River, which really is just a small creek, but the tanks and the German artillery and such can't cross that creek easily. So they crossed at a ford called Moissy. I'm not sure exactly where that is in this scene, but it's in this vicinity, and he was moving in this direction, which is where all of the Germans were moving through the corridor of death. And this is definitely the corridor of death. All of the Allied artillery, the Polish artillery from this hill, is raining down on the German soldiers as they're marching and retreating through this corridor of death below us. That's pretty much it. That's in summary. And Dad, of course, is with the German troops as a POW, thrown into a tank ditch and left there to fend for himself. Eventually, a German-American, Helmut Walderman, crossed a field from that tank trap where they were left. He crossed a field to the Polish troops and surrendered, or actually was liberated by the Polish troops. They had several wounded Germans with them, but there were numerous POWs as well, maybe a dozen POWs. They crossed a field to the Polish troops, some of whom had left this hill and were on a reconnaissance mission here in the valley. And those are the folks that really saved Dad from certain death as the Allies were shelling and dropping their artillery in this corridor of death. So this is where it all happened. Cut. Where Dad's memoirs explained he was captured for the second time shortly after Thanksgiving of 1944. And as I'm telling you this story, I got chills going through me because I can see where this would have been certainly the most monumental, one of the most monumental aspects of his life. And to know I'm standing nearby where he was a prisoner of war for the second time chokes me up and brings tears to my eyes.